To begin this morning, let's take a copy of the gray hymnal and open it to the page immediately after the title page. Here you will find the 7 principles and 6 sources we promote and affirm as Unitarian Universalists. During this service, we will explore the first source, quote, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. If you glance down at the other sources, you will see among them the elements of words or wisdom, of teachings, all resources available in books. But the first source suggests, quote, direct personal experience. Reading about it or watching a video is not enough. You have to experience it yourself. 3 days ago, Karen and I were walking on Russ Street near our home. There's a house there we like to go past because it is a wonder of a different sort. The owners have twice won the Halloween decorating prize, and they were second in the holiday season competition last year. We had just gone past this house when we heard the sounds of geese, many geese. We couldn't see them yet, but we searched the sky to the north and saw the flock, maybe 150, flying in a V-shaped formation, although somewhat ragged. We listened to them and watched them fly over our heads and on toward the southeast. The week before, we had seen a similar flock of sandhill cranes. For us, it was certainly a wonder, but also with ongoing mysterious elements. Where did they come from? Where are they going? Where do they find food along the way? Do they fly through the night? Are there leaders? All of us have read about the migration of geese and cranes, but books and magazines are not the same as direct experience. For Karen and me, the sight and sounds of the flock certainly renewed our spirits and opened us to the forces which create and uphold life. I think the key to this source, the first one in our living tradition, is its easy availability to all of us. As Walt Whitman demonstrated, a blade of grass can be a source of transcending mystery and wonder. A single acorn will do as well as a view of the Matterhorn. 30 years ago, our daughter Stephanie was a student at Swarthmore College, a school founded in 1864 by Quakers. The campus still has its original meeting house. Once when Karen and I were visiting, we went to a service, a traditional Quaker meeting. We all sat mostly in silence, men on one side of the hall and women on the other side. And sometimes someone would stand up and speak briefly, describing something that had moved them. Long moments of silence bracketed every speaking. A short distance away from the main hall and the child care spaces, we could hear children laughing, sometimes crying, including what sounded like a very young baby. After some time, an elderly man stood up to speak. He said, quote, I am finding it especially difficult this morning to reflect and meditate because of the crying baby. I wish someone would take that child into a more remote location. He sat down. About 10 minutes later, 10 minutes of silence, a woman stood to speak. She said, quote, I am disappointed this morning that there are some old fools who do not recognize that when an infant cries, they are hearing the voice of God. I judge by your response what your attitude might be. In the opening words, Paul read a passage from the journal of Ralph Waldo Emerson. By the way, when I first showed that passage to Paul, he said, but this old guy gives the kid back to the mother when he knows that the child needs to have the diaper changed. Why doesn't he just change it? I assured Paul that it was not his responsibility that Emerson didn't want to change the baby. Grandpa Ralph is stricken with wonder at the newly arrived visitor from the cosmos, but when it is clear that the child needs his diaper changed, he gives him back to his mother. And although Emerson frequently praised the power of nature to inspire, as the passage that Betty and Bob read, he might have been content to stay inside his study. But his young friend, Henry David Thoreau, shamed him into getting out more often, and Henry described in his journal an outing with Emerson during which they examined 11 different kinds of tree leaves with a magnifying glass, noting the vein patterns in each of them. But Thoreau once remarked, yes, Mr. Emerson loves nature, as long as there is a well-glazed pane of glass between him and it. So even our heroes sometimes fall a little short. Emerson also had minor conflicts about nature with his wife, Lydian. She loved growing roses, and once she planted some directly under the window near the desk where he liked to work. Lydian had fertilized her roses with manure, with horse manure. And though Ralph also liked roses, he did not enjoy the smell of manure. He understood and conceded Lydian's argument that the fragrance of roses were directly related to the quality of the manure, but he still insisted on moving that specific rose bed to another location. Emerson, like many of us, I am guessing, preferred a more filtered nature without snakes, ticks, flies, mosquitoes, or mud. Or manure, I suppose. In 1953, the son of a Jewish Russian immigrant, Edwin Drake, wrote a song called I Believe. You might know it. I believe for every drop of rain that falls. The singer Frankie Lane, another son of an immigrant, made it a hit song in the 50s. Lots of others, including Elvis, also sang it. In fact, on YouTube editions of Elvis's songs, this is the most, by almost double, the most frequently listened to. It is sometimes presented as a Christian song, even though it is not clear what it is the singer believes in. I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that somewhere in the darkest night a candle glows, and so on. But another verse down the line, it is, every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I know why I believe, and so on. It gets pretty dramatic. But this song is about the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all culture. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I believe. Song doesn't say in what. Even though people project on this song what they want themselves to believe. The song makes clear again that the power of this source is its easy availability. Availability to all of us. Rain, leaves, a view of the sky, the cry of a newborn. Yes, the birth of a child, hearing its cry, is there anything more mysterious, more wonderful? If there is a God, it is the closest we will ever come to hearing their voice. You've probably seen photos of the Venus woman of Willendorf, named for the Austrian village near where she was found. The figure is about 6 inches tall, made of clay, depicting a full-figured woman with large breasts, clearly pregnant. She is about 30,000 years old. One of the earliest depictions of what are sometimes called Earth Mother or Gaian figures. Archaeologists have found thousands of similar figures all around the planet Earth. Clearly, our early ancestors responded with awe and wonder at the way in which new human life emerges from a mother's body. They speak, these travelers, newly arrived, as Emerson observed. They do indeed speak with the voice of the great mystery some call God. The voices of children laughing or crying certainly have the power to move us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Among the principles we carry from our Universalist heritage, especially our Universalist heritage, is the rejection of the Calvinist notion that children are born sinful, stained by the sins of Adam and Eve. What an appalling idea. Children do not need to be redeemed, they need to be nurtured. One year during the holiday season, in our wayside pulpit out there on the southwest side of our building, we put the words, "Each night a child is born is a holy night." It's a line from a song in the Teal hymn book. Let's see, it's number 1069. 1061, if you'd like to take a look. The narrator says, "For so the children come, and so they have been coming." And then the choral response is, "Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing," and so on. And we had that, "Each night a child is born," out on our wayside pulpit. But the pastor from another nearby church happened to read the words and complained to his congregation about the blasphemy preached by the Unitarian Universalists. "We must be saved," he insisted, "by the blood of Christ. Only the birth of one child, Jesus," he said, "could be called holy." Even as a 13-year-old in Catholic school, I could not accept that idea. For me, it was a breaking point, actually, because before I was born, my mother had had 3 children who died in infancy, and she was not allowed to bury them in the Catholic cemetery because they had not been baptized. They were buried under a pine tree in our yard. Some historians of Unitarian history suggest that Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalists saved the Unitarians from sliding into an over-reliance on reason. This first source reflects Unitarian efforts early in its history at the urging of Emerson and other Transcendentalists to restore a balance among all of the resources we have as humans. Knowledge and reason, certainly, but also direct experience, especially those that stimulate a sense of wonder and mystery. When Emerson resigned his post as a Unitarian minister in 1832, he wrote, quote, "The soul of man does not contain merely a spark or light of God as Unitarians believe, it is God." He wrote that his chief task was to celebrate spiritual power. He lamented the Unitarians' quote, "inability to celebrate or even to discover or acknowledge the forces of truth and beauty evident in every tree and every face." 25 or 30 years ago, I was teaching an American literature class. One of the best students in class, Caleb, sat in the front row. He always came to class prepared, always had something important and interesting to say, but one day we were discussing Emerson's essay, Nature. It's the one where Emerson describes his experience of a cosmic spirit, a unified spirit of the universe. Emerson called it the oversoul. He describes it as a great bubble, and that when humans age, they develop egos. And these egos create a separate spiritual bubble, disconnected from the spirit of the universe, the oversoul. Thus, our private egos cause us to spend most of our adult life separated from the cosmic spirit. When we die, Emerson said, our bubble spirits dissolve and rejoin the oversoul. But then Emerson describes how it is possible for us to merge our spirit with the cosmic spirit by giving ourselves up to experiences of mystery and wonder, especially in nature. He wrote, quote, "The lover of nature is someone whose inward and outward senses are still truly adjusted to each other, who has retained the spirit of infancy. In the woods, we cast off our years, as the snake its skin, and at what period soever in life is always a child. In the woods is perpetual youth." He continues, "Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the amiable air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or parcel of God." One day, we were talking about this passage in class, and Caleb sat in the front row, unusually quiet. Then suddenly, he got up and left the room. I didn't know why. The rest of us went on with the class. Later that afternoon, Caleb came to see me in my office. He apologized for leaving so abruptly. He told me he had an emotional disorder. He suffered uncontrollable panic attacks when he was confronted by unanswerable mysteries. He said that he was being treated for it and took medication, but somehow on that day he had been overwhelmed by the mystery of a cosmic oversoul. Caleb did not feel wonder in the face of mystery. He felt panic. Sometime later, I was telling this story of Caleb and the oversoul to some other English teachers. kind of unprofessional, I admit, but Max Garland, who some of you know, suggested that Caleb's story is pretty much the story of almost every religious tradition. When confronted by great mysteries, we panic. We need explanations, stories to explain away the mysteries in ways that are comforting or satisfying. In the face of human death, some are comforted by a story about a place called heaven, where we live forever in the company of those we love. Or when we learn about evil people who seem to thrive, we comfort ourselves with a story about how they will spend eternity in the fires of hell. Our own UU sources suggest that mystery and wonder move us to a, quote, renewal of the spirit, and openness to the forces which create and uphold life. But what do we do if, like Caleb, we contemplate infinite space in the night sky and feel infinitely insignificant? What do we do when we observe people who lie and cheat and become powerful and rich and admired by many? A contemporary with Emerson and Thoreau, Herman Melville, author of Moby Dick, had a somewhat darker view of, quote, the transcending mystery and wonder, end quote. Herman's father was a Unitarian, but his mother was Dutch Reformed, a firmly Calvinist faith. Melville respected all things natural, but he believed nature was indifferent to humans and might kill us as easily as inspire us. In fact, some readers see the white whale, Moby Dick, as the emblem of cosmic mystery and wonder. In that interpretation of the story, it is crazy and suicide to try to capture the whale, render it down. Here's a passage from Moby Dick. It describes a sailor high on a mast. This sailor is supposed to be watching for whales, but he has entered the oversoul and never sees any. Quote, at last he loses his identity, takes the mystic ocean at his feet for the visible image of that deep blue bottomless soul, pervading mankind and nature. But the narrator in Moby Dick offers a warning. Quote, but while this sleep, this dream is on ye, move your foot or hand an inch, slip your hold at all, and your identity comes back in horror. At midday, in the fairest weather, with one half-throttled shriek, you drop through that transparent air into the summer sea, no more to rise forever. Ye did well, ye pantheists. So how do we today experience this transcending mystery without losing our grip and falling into the sea? How do we renew our spirits while continuing to see and appreciate the daily realities of our existence? Well, if we are holding an infant and we can tell it needs a diaper change, we might ask the child's mother if she would like us to change it. If we want beautiful roses, we accept the need for the fragrance of fertilizer. We can enjoy the view from the mast without losing our grip. After some time, my student Caleb learned to write down his reactions when he was experiencing overwhelming mystery and wonder, and he became a successful musician, songwriter, and performer, and actually still is in Seattle. I hope for you, each of you, the joy of saluting the dawn of each new day by bathing in wonder and mystery. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is already a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. When we UUs talk about transcending wonder and mystery, we usually are thinking about natural landscapes, but many cultures have created human-made churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, pyramids, gardens, music and art, exquisite wonders to provide a direct experience of mystery, something more powerful than words. There is an example right there. Lori Beasley's window. Out of the universe we come, she called it. But then I remember how those devices of wonder have also been used to capture millions into rigid, sometimes grotesque theologies. I remember how parades, music, the symmetry of marching soldiers, airplanes in formation flying overhead can help forge an irrational bonding to truly crazy forces that do not create and do not uphold life. We do need direct experience, but we also need the other sources to balance the limits of our singular lives. Especially, we need community. To close, here is an admonition from Henry David Thoreau's Walden. Quote, "Live in each season as it passes, breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of the earth."